Coming soon to own on
YouTube
video
and Twitch.
DVD.
The worst storm chasing events ever. If you don't know what storm chasing is like when people like weather reporters they go try to catch photos and live videography of like tornadoes and hurricanes. It's very risky business. Let's get
The
straight
El
to it.
Reno tornado. On May 31st, 2013, 55-year-old Tim Samaras was
I just want to say I feel like obviously 55 isn't an old age, but to do some shit like this, I feel like you got to be in your 30s, 20s. Just like like I wouldn't call him a liability, but he's a liability.
leading his team through Canadian County, Oklahoma, tracking what would become the widest tornado ever recorded. Tim, an engineer and
Wow.
storm researcher, had spent over 20 years chasing tornadoes. He held the Guinness World Record for recording the greatest pressure drop ever measured inside a tornado, 100 millibars near Manchester, South Dakota, in 2003. He was known as one of the most careful chasers in the field. The National Geographic
Wow.
Society had awarded him 18 grants for his field research. With him that day were his 24-year-old son, Paul, who shared his father's birthday and passion for documenting nature, and 45-year-old Carl Young, a meteorologist and geology teacher who served as navigator. They called themselves TWISTEX, Tactical Weather Instrumented Sampling in Tornadoes Experiment, and their mission was to place specially designed probes in tornado paths to measure conditions inside. But on this day, they weren't driving Tim's usual reinforced 3/4-ton truck optimized for hail and high winds.
I gotta listen to why.
They were in Carl's unmodified Chevrolet Cobalt, chosen to accommodate high-speed camera equipment for a lightning research project. The car had equipment
That doesn't sound for somebody who's been in this field for 20 years. One, the decision of switching from the standard weather made car to a Chevy is already a bad decision, but you not knowing like the severity of the tornado and how big it's going to get for somebody who's been in this field for 20 years doesn't. I mean, that's a terrible decision. You bought a Chevy to the widest tornado in history.
including heavy barometric probes in the trunk, and was significantly underpowered. Shortly after 6 p.m., a supercell thunderstorm developed west of El Reno. By 6:03 p.m., a tornado touched down about 8 miles west-southwest of town. The tornado grew
Wow.
rapidly, expanding from about 1 mile wide to 2.6 miles across in just 30 seconds. It was wrapped in heavy rain, making it
30
nearly impossible
seconds?
to see its true size. As Tim, Paul, and Carl drove on Reuter Road among wheat fields, they believed the tornado was heading southeast. But at 6:23 p.m., the tornado made a sudden turn directly toward them, accelerating from about 20
Ooh.
miles per hour to 60 miles per hour in forward movement. Carl noticed the rain around their vehicle
Depending on, I assume they're going in a straight line. You could definitely get 80 miles on a Chevy in under before the tornado can close the distance.
had stopped, and the wind became eerily calm. Tim's voice came over the radio. Actually, I think we're in a bad spot. The vehicle was struck by a subvortex, moving at 175 miles per hour within the parent tornado. The small Cobalt was lifted and thrown violently. When emergency crews found it the next morning, it was mangled beyond recognition. Tim's body was still in the driver's seat. Paul and Carl were ejected from the car, their bodies found hundreds of yards away amid a wide debris field. It was the first time professional storm chasers had been killed directly by a tornado. The El Reno tornado
Wow.
killed 8 people that day and injured 151 others. It remains the widest tornado ever measured with winds exceeding 313 miles per hour. Weather Channel
Wow.
nightmare. On that same afternoon of May 31st, 2013, Weather Channel meteorologist Mike Betts was tracking the El Reno tornado just miles from the Twistex team.
So this tornado was obviously he said it was the biggest ever recorded, but like this it's so important. It has so much impact that is coming across in multiple
Betts, who had
storylines.
been with the Weather Channel since 2003, was leading the tornado hunt team. The crew included producer Austin Anderson as driver, cameraman Brad Reynolds, and 3 engineers. They traveled in a convoy of 3 vehicles along Highway 81. The vehicles included the Betts Mobile and the Bloom Mobile, named for NBC correspondent David Bloom, who died in Iraq. The team had just finished broadcasting when they believed they were at a safe distance. Betts had been tracking the visible funnel several miles back in the distance. He thought they were safe, but the tornado was much larger than it appeared and was making its deadly turn. Engineer Kevin Parrish was driving the lead truck when he suddenly felt it lift slightly off the ground before
Drove
slamming
straight
back down.
into it.
Through his windshield, he watched the Betts Mobile, carrying Betts, Anderson, and Reynolds, pass by him completely airborne. He estimated it was lifted 20 to 30 feet.
20
He
feet
later
in the
described it as
air.
looking like someone had placed a spatula underneath and was
You
flipping it
getting
like a
your shit.
pancake. The
You getting your shit flipped like a pancake at Denny's. Oh my god. Can you just like? I'm sorry, I'm saying like so much, but can you just imagine the feeling of just driving and then like the back half of your car just suddenly out of nowhere 15 feet in the air just climbing. Like you just imagine that feeling.
GMC Yukon crossed 2 lanes of highway, jumped the center median, crossed 2 more lanes, and disappeared from view. Parrish's truck came to rest in a ditch with its rear windows blown out. For several moments, the only sound was the deafening roar of the tornado. The radios remained silent. The Betts Mobile
Wait, so if he was leading the drive, how did the car behind him get flipped? I must have missed that.
was thrown approximately 200 yards into a field. When it came to rest,
Wow.
the roof had collapsed inward. Austin Anderson suffered the worst injuries. The roof came down onto him, causing neck and spinal injuries, a cracked
Mm.
sternum, 5 broken ribs, and a fractured vertebra. Mike Betts sustained cuts and
Oh.
swallowed glass from shattered windows. He needed 3 stitches in his left hand. According to a later lawsuit filed by Anderson, an NBC engineer had disabled the SUV's airbag system before the trip,
For what? Oh, hell no. That literally makes no sense. Like, I get, like, you wanna be fast, but debris still flies through a tornado. Something coulda hit even if they didn't get hit by the tornado, something coulda hit this car, and they woulda needed an airbag to protected them. I don't understand
which he
that.
claimed worsened his injuries. Storm chaser Reed Timmer arrived in his Dominator vehicle.
See, like, why is he the only one in, like, the mandated vehicle for this shit, and he out here? Everybody else in SUVs and Chevys.
They had been chasing for KFOR-TV when they spotted the destroyed SUV. They stopped to assist along with Oklahoma Highway Patrol, but had to leave as the storm approached. All 3 survived. Anderson faced months of
Mm.
recovery and multiple surgeries. During the tumbling, Betts closed his eyes and felt weightless, wondering if he was dead. He saw what he described as an angelic vision of his wife Allison, whom he'd married months earlier. The experience left him with PTSD symptoms, but with support, he returned to storm chasing the following year.
You a brave soldier, cause I could never. You get lifted 30 feet in the air, you get tossed 200 yards rolling into the field. You're upside down, swallow glass and knee stitches. The next year, you go right back to chasing storms. I would have had to been sideline. I would have been just the weatherman or the behind the scene meteorologist. There's no way in hell I would have went back out here after that.
The Texas incident. On March 28, 2017, 57-year-old Kelly Williamson and 55-year-old Randall Yarnell were racing
Mm.
down rural roads in the Texas Panhandle, chasing a tornado near Spur, about 55 miles southeast of Lubbock. The two were stars of the Weather Channel's Storm Wranglers and had known each other since elementary school. They worked for
Aw.
Stormview Live, which provided live videos for weather companies. Williamson had asked Yarnell to join him on the Weather Channel about 2 years earlier. They were under contract and were live streaming their chase on Facebook. But multiple storm chasers had privately expressed concerns to Weather Channel producers. Just weeks before, a chaser sent text messages warning that Williamson's driving was concerning. As evening approached, Williamson and Yarnell were speeding northbound on Farm to Market Road 1081, their Chevrolet Suburban's cruise control set near 70 miles per hour. They were
Ooh.
unfamiliar with the area. The windshield was partially
That in itself, not even like it being a natural disaster. Going 70 miles per hour on roads you don't know, that in itself is already a problem.
obstructed by storm tracking equipment, and they were unfamiliar with the rural road network. Meanwhile, 25-year-old Corbin Lee Jaeger was driving westbound on Farm to Market Road 2794, following the proper right-of-way. Focused on the storm, Williamson and Yarnell failed to stop at the intersection. At full speed, their
Mm,
Suburban blasted straight through the stop sign. The collision was catastrophic. All three men were killed instantly. Williamson, not wearing
wow.
his seatbelt, was ejected. Yarnell and Yeager, both wearing seatbelts, died upon impact. The Facebook live stream abruptly cut out. The lawsuit filed by Jaeger's mother, 2 years later, alleged Williamson and Yarnell had a history of running stop signs and traffic lights, driving on private property, and driving off-road, all captured on film to increase the sense of danger. The lawsuit claimed the channel had knowledge of these habits, yet continued employing them, and even encouraged the recklessness by instructing them during broadcasts to capture exciting footage. Later, Jaeger's mother filed a $125 million
Ooh,
wrongful death lawsuit against the Weather Channel. The Lindsay shooting. On
125 million. It's like, yeah, that's good and all. But money can't replace like the loss of a loved one, especially your son. Your son was just driving home. I don't know where he was going, but he's just trying to drive home. Yeah, that's just sad.
March 13th, 1990, Bill Miracle was doing what he'd done countless times, photographing severe weather for Oklahoma City television station KWTV. Miracle was an experienced cameraman who had spent over 30 years in the industry, working in both Hollywood and local news. He'd covered everything from police actions to fires in Oklahoma City. On this Tuesday evening, shortly after 7 p.m., he and KWTV reporter Dave Ballou were sitting in an unmarked station vehicle on a dirt road near Lindsay, Oklahoma, about 45 miles south of Oklahoma City. They were positioned to capture footage of a tornado outbreak that had produced multiple twisters. The area was rural and isolated, ideal for filming without obstructions. As they sat monitoring the storms, Miracle and Balut had no idea they were about to become victims of a crime that had nothing to do with weather. Without warning, two people suddenly approached the television van. Before either man could react, Balut heard glass breaking. A pistol shot rang out. The bullet
Oh
struck Miracle
shit.
directly in the chest and lodging in his right lung. He immediately began yelling for help. Balu, uninjured but shocked, tried to render aid while calling for emergency assistance. It quickly became apparent that Miracle and Balut had accidentally stumbled upon a drug deal. The dealers, seeing the TV van
Oh,
with all its equipment, had panicked and assumed they were law enforcement. They had opened fire to protect their operation. Emergency responders rushed to the scene and transported Miracle to Lindsay Hospital. The bullet had lodged in his right lung, causing serious damage and bleeding. Doctors stabilized him before transferring him to Baptist Medical Center in Oklahoma City. The medical team faced a difficult decision. The bullet was embedded deep in his lung tissue. Baptist Medical Center spokesman Randy Sachs announced that despite the severity, doctors would not schedule surgery to remove it. The procedure would require opening his chest and cutting through lung tissue, and they determined the risk outweighed leaving the bullet in place. Miracle was listed in fair condition.
so would that make him paralyzed because the bullet's still in? Wait, wouldn't that be dangerous? Like, wouldn't he get like, forgot what his bullets made out of, like the type of metal it is, but wouldn't he get like poisoning over time? Because it's like the fragments are sitting inside of his lung.
And seemed to be doing well considering he'd been shot in the chest just hours earlier. Miracle eventually made a full recovery and returned to work, though the bullet remained in his lung for life. He would later speak to students about his experiences, emphasizing that nothing was worth risking your life. The incident remains one of the most bizarre non-weather related incidents in storm chasing history.
I'm still trying to think why he like leaving the bullet. I get like why not trying to get the bullet, but why the bullet staying in there that wouldn't poison like he get like metal poisoning or something from just sitting in his lungs.
The Oklahoma students. On the late evening of April 29th, 2022, three University of
Oh, this is
Oklahoma
more recent.
meteorology students were making the drive home after what Drake would call the best night of his life. Nicholas Nair,
Wow.
20, from Denton, Texas, was behind the wheel of his 2017 Volkswagen Tiguan. In the passenger seats were Gavin Short, 19, from Gracelake, Illinois, and Drake Brooks, 22, from Evansville, Indiana. The three had traveled north to Kansas earlier that day to chase severe weather. At
Just all over the
8:07
place.
p.m., they had witnessed and filmed a small, dusty tornado about 4 miles north of Harrington, Kansas. Short posted the video to social media. For Brooks, it was his first tornado ever. The excitement was overwhelming. Shortly after, Brooks called his family from the road. He told his mother that this was the best night of his life. Shortly before 11:30 p.m., as they traveled south on Interstate 35 near Tonkawa, about 85 miles north of Oklahoma City, the weather turned deadly. It was raining and the roadway was wet. Nair's Volkswagen suddenly hydroplaned on the slick pavement. The SUV went off the road to the right, then came back onto the interstate. But the vehicle had become disabled and was now blocking the outside lane, unable to move. Before they could react, a southbound semi-truck traveling in the same direction crashed into the stopped Volkswagen with devastating force. All three students were instantly pinned inside the crushed vehicle beneath the semi. Emergency responders worked frantically for over 5 hours to extract the three young men from the wreckage. All three were pronounced dead at the scene. The truck driver was treated for minor injuries and released.
Hydroplaning, I had a friend who hydroplaned when it was in high school. Usually when it's wet and when it's ice outside, driving obviously driving fast wouldn't be the best thing, but a lot of things they say to do when you lose control of the car, don't try to fight it. Just let it rock out. Like, if you start drifting, don't try to hard cut the wheel back the other way, because then you're gonna actually hydroplane even worse.
The Minnesota truck. On May 2022, Martha Llanos Rodriguez, a 30-year-old storm-chasing meteorologist from Mexico City, was pursuing violent weather across southwestern Minnesota with three colleagues from South America. Rodriguez had traveled from Mexico to pursue her passion for understanding severe thunderstorms. She was part of a team that included Diego Campos, who was handling the driving, and two Chilean meteorologists. The group had been tracking severe thunderstorms across the region, carefully documenting the powerful weather systems. On this particular day, they were traveling along Interstate 90, one of the main highways cutting through southern Minnesota. The storms they had been chasing had produced extremely strong straight-line winds, including numerous downed trees and power lines scattered across roads. As evening approached and daylight faded, the team found themselves driving through the aftermath of one of these severe storm cells. Power lines had been knocked down by winds and were laying directly across the interstate lanes ahead, creating an extremely hazardous obstacle. Campos, who was behind the wheel, saw the downed lines ahead and made the immediate decision to bring the vehicle to a complete stop. It was absolutely the safe choice, because power lines could still be energized with thousands of volts and posed a serious electrocution risk if driven over. The team came to a halt on Interstate 90 with their hazard lights flashing brightly to warn other drivers. But what they didn't see was the semi-trailer truck approaching rapidly from behind on the dark interstate. The truck driver, possibly unable to see the stopped vehicle in time due to poor visibility from rain and darkness, didn't slow down. The massive semi plowed.
And it's like shit like this. This is why I'm scared. I'm not saying I'm scared, but I'm scared of truck drivers on the highway. I know they're like supposed to be good and certified, but I feel like driving those long hours, especially overnight, you can get tired, and when you get tired, you make mistakes. You're not gonna be you're gonna feel like you doing everything perfectly fine until you make a big mistake, but when you tired, you gonna make a lot of mistakes.
Directly into the back of the meteorologist's vehicle with tremendous force at highway speed. The impact was absolutely devastating. Martha Llanos Rodriguez was killed instantly in the collision. Diego Campos and the two Chilean meteorologists were all injured in the violent crash. The two from Chile sustained painful but non-life-threatening injuries. However, Bradford Barrett, an American meteorologist stationed in Chile who was traveling with them, sustained severe life-threatening injuries and required immediate emergency treatment. The storm-chasing community was absolutely devastated when news spread. Rodriguez was remembered as an exceptionally talented young meteorologist who had traveled thousands of miles to pursue her passion. Her death, coming just 2 weeks after three University of Oklahoma students, Drake Brooks, Nicholas Nair, and Gavin Short, had been killed in a separate hydroplaning accident while returning from a chase, sent shockwaves through the community. The incident highlighted one of the harsh truths that veteran chasers had long known, that despite the obvious dangers of lightning and violent tornadoes, the time spent driving on highways in poor visibility actually posed the single greatest risk.
I didn't know that the risk of like passing away from just trying to get to the storm was greater than the actual storm itself most of the time. Uh, when I heard this, I was thinking this was gonna be a lot of stories of like debris just flying and like just hitting people losing like their markings and getting caught in the storm. I didn't expect a lot of these incidents would be people trying to get to the storm or trying to settle down somewhere. But that was the worst storm chasing incidents ever. Let me know how y'all feel about that down below.
Why you standing all by yourself? Those shoes are made for dancing with someone else.